We're back with City Councilman Charles Barron, Bob Law.
Let me just say this in terms of all the things that Charles just laid out. As I said, Charles has very specific programs, proposals, a way that all of this can be done. And there's more. I'm going to give him a few minutes to talk about the MTA. There's more. But here's what we really want you to understand, want people to understand. What the Freedom Party is calling for, what Charles just began to lay out, was a rebuilding of the very infrastructure of this community. When he said earlier that once we are in power and we begin to allocate funds, resources to the communities that need them the most, because it is the underserved communities that are being neglected. You won't hear anybody else use the term working class but Charles Barron and our candidates. Everybody else says the wealthy and the middle class.
The middle class.
The middle class, the working class, which represents masses of people, is being absolutely abandoned and ignored. And you can't, you mentioned Hazel Dukes, since you mentioned her name, you mentioned Hazel Dukes, as an example of a Democrat embracing Cuomo.
Bill Thompson was there also.
But the point is this. See, the Democrats have already, those regular, traditional Democrats, leadership as they are called, they have already endorsed Cuomo without requiring anything from him. That's the reason that the black community is so underserved, that the black political leadership is already in the hip pocket of the political machines.
Well, I have to say it, I'm not to interject, but I'm going to let you get back to it, but I have to say it for the record, it was very troubling to see that because Cuomo never came to our community.
The point again is that is the point. When whoever they pick, Cuomo,
Palladino.
They could have picked Palladino. Makes no difference. Whoever the Democrats pick, the traditional black Democratic leadership is automatically in their pocket. So they are compelled, and they think, to support the Democrat and go to the Democrat and say, we will deliver the black vote to you, without ever saying to black people, here's what you will get in return for your support. We are a people who never get any return. See, we don't have to ask any of these politicians to support us because we're black, as much as we would like to see the president respond to his kith and kin. We don't have to say to him, do it because you're black. We could say to him, do it in return for 98% of our vote, which is what other people did. Latino community said, in return for 68% of our vote, we want immigration reform and a Supreme Court justice. In return for 68% of our vote, not because we're Latino. Well, black folk are in the same have the same kind of power, but the black political leadership is the leadership that constantly delivers us into the hands of whoever is in power. In Long Island, in Nassau County, in Suffolk County, the black political leadership there delivers the Republican vote.
That's right.
They don't have any principle. They don't have any ideology that they embrace or support. And so what's important to understand about the Freedom Party is that the Freedom Party is calling for putting the resources where they are most needed, which is to begin to rebuild the infrastructure of the underserved communities. You cannot tell young people to stop killing each other because it's wrong to kill. You can't tell them, pull up your pants because we're better than that. That doesn't make any sense to them. There is a condition that shapes and controls their life. As a result of that condition, the black community is dysfunctional on every level. Hospitals are closed, schools don't work, vigilante police in the street. Police get away with every murder they commit. The black community is dysfunctional, highest unemployment ever. The unemployment in the black community is astronomical. Much
18%?
It's 18% when they announce it. It's more like 51%. The black community is dysfunctional on every level. So how do you go to people who come out of their home hungry, no heat? I was driving through the community one night in the winter, and I had a friend of mine in the car with me, a brother from SNCC, and that's a Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, baddest youth group just before the Panthers. In fact, we invented the Panthers in Loudoun County, Alabama. And we were watching these brothers standing on the corner with a fire in a garbage can. And they were sitting around warming their hands and talking, and I said, wow, it's cold out here, and these brothers want to talk. Why don't they go outside, go in the house? You know, everybody go to the same apartment. And my friend said, said, see, Negro, you just crazy. There's no heat upstairs. That's why they're outside. And they can't they can't set fire to a garbage can in the house.
Exactly.
So that how do you tell people where there's no food, no heat, and they have no control over their destiny whatsoever? I'm gonna hurry up.
But because I want to ask you a question, because we had black leadership there. So why is that?
Wait. Don't. No control over their destiny whatsoever. They're crazy. They're frustrated. They're alienated. Then you tell them, here's what we want you to do. We want you to act like there's no conditions creating your alienation. We want you to behave as though everything is fine and proper in your community. We want you to act like there's hospitals and schools. You know, we're telling young people, stay in school. I'm telling you. I've been dealing with the schools for years. I brought a lawsuit against the schools in 1990. These public schools in New York City and around the country are not worth staying in. So we're putting young people in what is a public school to prison pipeline. Here is the point. What Charles has begun to lay out is how we would begin to rebuild and restructure the infrastructure of the black community. It's the only way. If you can't tell people, for instance, we're handing out an open letter to black youth. We go out in the street with an open letter to black youth, and we can say it, and it's written by Abiodun Oyewole, one of the last poets, one of the original last poets, gifted, eloquent. Open letter to black youth. The problem is not enough of them can read.
Okay, but my question is, black governor, black conference leader, black assembly person, black city council person.
See, but here's what's our problem? When I say you're raising the wrong question, I say they can't read. You say, but we got a
okay,
wait. Let me answer you. Then you say, well, we got a black governor. That ain't the point. The point is we got to create schools that work. We've got to teach, we've got to nurture their minds.
Oh, and I agree.
And we've got to set that kind of a process in place.
But we had leadership here to do it.
See, the only thing
we had political leadership.
We're saying that you can't just change the complexion of the leadership. You have to change the policies.
Okay.
Right.
So if you have a black president that transfers the war from Iraq to Afghanistan and has unmanned drones flying over Pakistan, if you have a governor that cuts us to the bones, just like the white governors did, then you didn't have a change in policies. And he could do that, which is Bob's point, he could do that because the black leadership around him will allow him to do that, because they'll deliver our vote to them without any policy changes. So we can't let them get into personality contests with us. Palladino is a racist loose cannon, yes. But Cuomo is more dangerous because he engages in racial benign neglect. And that's more dangerous because Palladino has no power. But the Democrats and Cuomo do. So when they racially benignly neglect us, and have the communities deteriorate, then you need a Freedom Party to say, you may have these black leaders, but the black masses is here. When we get the black masses in a party that has 200, 300,000 votes, or 1.6 million votes, and we're governor, 400,000 votes, and we have the largest vote of the third party ever. That's leverage. 50,000 votes, we have a party, and we're on our way to build. So if we say, with that comes, hey, you're not going to be able to cut deals with black leaders in the back room.
Okay.
And then deliver us. How dare they bring Cuomo to Harlem? The Freedom Party confronted him.
Yes, indeed.
Ran him out of Harlem. And when he got a chance to get all the microphones in front of him to say something about the conditions of the people of Harlem, like we're going to address gentrification. I know a specific plan for addressing that. We're going to address the police that are out of control and the unemployment and the vendors that got wiped out and the local black merchants who really hire all of our people. And Cuomo gets that mic, and the only thing he says, because the black leadership around him let him escape, when Hazel Duke said, I am going to fight with everything I have to stop that Palladino. Yes, it's racism from becoming the governor.
Okay.
That's not the issue. Black people aren't voting for Palladino. And she got this benign racist neglect candidate standing right next to her. He followed the lead and couldn't even say race. I'm fighting against this guy. He's an extremist. because he talked about a benevolent
But
dictatorship.
we're here to talk about a policy.
We have to talk about policy.
What was his policy?
Nothing. I'm saying for him to be able to come to Harlem with Charlie Rangel, with Billy Thompson, with Keith Wright, with Carl McCall, with Hazel Dukes, and only say to the people of Harlem when he finally got our attention is that Palladino is an extremist.
Like we didn't know that.
We didn't know.
See, and the point is that when you say we have this leadership, you're basing that on their titles.
Exactly.
We have a governor, we have a congressman, they have all these titles, but they do not in fact represent the leadership in the black community. There's a leadership that's not even new. There's a leadership in the black community that has been there all the time. And that leadership is beginning now to emerge even more so to the leadership surface.
Okay.
Because we're not newcomers. And there are many of us, and people who are helping to organize the Freedom Party, there are many of us who can call people together even more so and more effectively than the people who are propped up as the leaders.
So these next political race coming up in the future, the Freedom Party will have a hand in bringing out candidates for these city council, assembly, and this is part of, and this is where I was going with everything. This is part of the leverage that the Freedom Party will be able to bring out to say we will now start running candidates.
Right. So now what we want to happen is that you'll have.
But we want to be real clear. We want to be clear. What we're talking about is fundamental change, restructuring the infrastructure of the black and Latino community so that it is no longer on the brink of extinction.
Okay.
Now, that's our primary goal, to empower that community. Not to empower that community because we desire other seats in office, but other seats in office are part of the process in order to build that power network. See, there are other political organizations in the Democratic and Republican parties. There's other local community that are political organizations, but their goal and their ambition is to just be elected to office. They just want to be the assemblyman. They just want to be in the city council. They just want to have elective office. Once they get in, they say things to us. We had one of the co-chairs of the Freedom Party had a conversation with one of those black elected officials, I believe, in Albany. And what he said, she said, you know, fundamental change. He said, now listen, Viola, this is not radical politics now. Now that I'm in office, now I play the game.
We go along to get along.
You know, this is not radical politics. Why isn't it still radical politics when radical change is what is absolutely necessary? Why do you think we voted you into office for you to become a moderate? But his goal was to get elected. See, they will say things like, there are some politicians all throughout Brooklyn, New York, all throughout New York City, black politicians. And what they say about many of those politicians is that they have other aspirations. This woman in the city council, she really wants to go to Congress. This woman in the Congress, she really wants to go to the state senate. They got all kind of other aspirations. They will even say that they're not really trying to do anything in their current seat because they don't want to harm their future political aspirations.
So what we need and what they're trying to do is two different things.
We need to replace them. But we need to replace them because they are ineffective and they don't serve the interests of our people. So that is the reason, not because, because people try to trivialize our differences. They say, well, we got to work together. They have a thing called operational unity. We got to work together and get past all of our little petty differences. If they was petty, we wouldn't get past them.
Okay, well, Bob, let me close out this section, and I'm willing to take a parking ticket for you to give me 5 or 10 more minutes.
We can.
Okay, so we're going to come back hopefully right after a brief message from our sponsors.